This is a follow-up to our trip from Pittsburgh to Dallas, and now back to Pittsburgh, leaving Dallas. So, first of all, you could say, how many miles did we travel from Pittsburgh to Dallas to get there? Well, it's because we backtracked back to Durant, Oklahoma. We actually made what was a 370-mile trip become a 412-mile trip. So, if we traveled 412 miles, if we want to divide that by the amount of energy we used, 105, you'll notice that we were getting a fuel economy of about 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour. That's not great, but it is what it is. So this just is a screen that is showing that the car was getting charged at the hotel on a slow AC charge rate. You can see it's just charging at 5 kilowatt hours at the actual hotel. When you're charging a hotel, I guess I always have a little bit of reservation. People are curious about electric vehicles, and so you're always a little concerned that somebody might go up to it and want to press the button or something, which would, let's say, kill the power or even disconnect it. And then, of course, you don't get any charge at night. That would be a concern. I checked a couple times before we went to bed, and I actually went out late, 11:30 at night, just to take this photo, because this will reset at the end of a full charge. And so I went out 11:30 at night just to take the screen so I could include that photo here. But next morning, I got up, I just walked down the hotel hallway, looked out the window, and noticed it was fully charged. The green light was no longer blinking, so we're in good shape there. So, and you'll notice that when we get ready to leave in the morning, it shows that our guessometer, they're estimating that we're going to get 241 miles if we went from 100% state of charge, which it's at, to the full, complete discharge, which you would never do, right? So that 241 is based on your last trip, right? So if you're going to have the exact same headwinds or tailwinds, the same exact climate, the exact same speed, then that's an okay guess to use. But you know, driving to one location and driving back are never the same. So this shows our first leg of the trip when we left Dallas, headed back to Pittsburgh, Kansas. And so it's good that we were able to travel 212 miles on this Bolt. If you're saying, well, what was your fuel economy on the first part of the leg? Well, 212 miles divided by the amount of energy used, 47.3 kilowatt hours. Well, we were doing exceptionally well, getting almost 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, but we were going exceptionally slow. We were only going 58 miles an hour, which is very, very, very slow. And so I'll elaborate a little bit on it. Let me elaborate on it now. The car at the DC fast charging is so slow that I would like sometime to have two Bolts travel 400 miles together and have one try to go as fast as they can within the speed limit, 75, 80 miles an hour. And then to have the other one do that 58 miles an hour. And I think that the car traveling 75, 80, their fuel economy would drop so much that it would require them to charge more. And because the charging is so slow, I'm thinking that a car traveling 58 miles an hour might actually win the 400-mile trip if they're two Chevrolet Bolts. Now, you say, hey, I don't want to mess with these games, and that's good. Well, go out and buy yourself a car that gets 400 miles of range, and then you don't even have to mess with DC fast charging. Or buy Tesla and just only charge at Tesla locations, which are great, and have a lot more places to charge. It's great. Yes, we've charged at some Tesla locations, but we're not allowed to charge at all Tesla locations. And we don't have the extension cord, which would be very helpful if you're in some Tesla locations, because you might have to take up 2 stalls, and so that's a mess. So, anyways, we didn't use all of the battery. It shows that we had used 47.3 kilowatt hours, so we still had some battery left. We could have kept trying to go farther, but we wanted to stop at this Walmart to do a little bit of shopping. I don't know if this is Chakota, Oklahoma. I don't really know how to say the name, but they have these nice new Walmart EV chargers. We charged here last time we came back from Dallas. It's kind of interesting that particular time people were really staring at you. It's still fairly new for people to be charging EVs in that town because people kind of looked at you like you're from Mars when you're out there charging on the parking lot. So when you pull up to it, it's not too terribly challenging. On this particular one, you already have the Walmart app, which you might use for grocery shopping anyways. And so you take out your phone, take your camera, take a photo of this QR code, it automatically pulls up the Walmart app, and you can be charging in a very short period of time. We have about 16 to 17 different charging apps that are on our phone, and we've used almost all of them if I had to think about that. So when we pulled up to the 4 different stations, the very last one did not even have a screen. It was completely dark. We tried the next one, and it would not really charge the car anything. And so then we ended up going to the last one. And so you could see that it said that we were at about a 21% battery state of charge. I don't remember how quickly I was able to take this photo. I thought this was a fairly quick photo, that it was estimating our battery state of charge at about 21% when we first started. And you can see it's starting to ramp up. So it jumped up to 14 kilowatts, it jumped up to 27 kilowatts. Now we're seeing that it's trying to push 52 kilowatts out of this charger into the car, 52. If you look inside the car, you can see that it shows that it's receiving about 46 kilowatts. So this is pretty fast charge for this Bolt, which is not great. And it's because your state of charge is so low. You can see it shows we only have 55-mile range left. And so this is a very fast charge for this car, which is actually very slow for most electric vehicles. And then after a period of time, let's say we got all the way up to 179 miles of range. Now look, we're only charging at 22 kilowatts, which is really, really slow. Now we're up to 186 miles, and it's dropped down to 21 kilowatts. And if you want to look, say, well, how much farther do you have to go? We had 168 miles left on our trip. So if we don't want to have to make another stop, we're going to have a little bit of a difference. And so I call it margin. What's your guessometer say? And then how far do you have to go? And I was shooting for about 30 plus miles of margin. Last time we left pretty quickly because a lightning storm was coming, but that ended up killing us because then we drove into a massive headwind for several miles, and it was very challenging the last trip from Dallas back to Pittsburgh. So you can see that it says we're about ready to stop charging. We charged for an hour and 5 minutes, and we consumed about 41 kilowatt hours is what we used. You could say, oh, you only spent $21.78. Well, think about this. The hotel was free charging. So from Dallas, Texas, all the way back to Pittsburgh, Kansas, we, drove, I guess you would say, that leg of the trip for less than $22. You could say, well, you have to charge back at the house. Well, if we were low at the house, let's say at the house we needed another 40 kilowatt hours when we got there on estimate. Well, if we're only paying 14 cents per kilowatt hour, we put another $5.60 in at the house just to get it back up to speed. So we're getting ready to leave. The parking lot there practically done. It's all the way down to 18 kilowatt hour speed. It says when we were finished, we stopped at 81% charge, and so it said we started at a state of charge of 21. We went all the way up to 81%. And you can see that the energy delivered was 41.29 kilowatt hours. So, and as we're getting ready to leave, we're no longer charging. Matter of fact, instead of seeing that 18, 19, 20 kilowatts that's being pumped in, now we're actually going backwards. We're losing as much as 3 kilowatts because it's hot outside, the air conditioner's on. We're getting ready to leave, and so you can see the guessometer says we have about 198 miles to go. So again, this is how far we've traveled so far, 213, and we have about 168 to go. By the time we arrived at the house, you'll see that our total trip from Dallas to Pittsburgh, Kansas was 371 miles traveled. So if you say, well, what was your fuel economy on the way home? 371 miles were traveled, and if we consumed 86.5, then you see that we have good fuel economy coming home, 4.3. Well, that's because we drove ridiculously slow, 58 miles an hour. And fortunately, people are kind driving from Texas to Pittsburgh at those slow speeds. You know, we've had this car probably in at least 15, 16, maybe 17 different states. And I plan to put a video up sometime about our trip to Maine. And I'll tell you, that trip, man, when you're in Ohio and you're driving slow, there are a lot of folks that are honking that are upset. And so they're like, obviously they don't want you to be on the road at all. So, and that was probably the only state that we experienced that in, whether it was New York or New Jersey, Rhode Island, all those states that we were in. That was the only state that we had folks that were upset. So anyways, I hope to post a trip on the Maine trip that we did back in, I think it was July. So that was several states, 3,500 mile trip, and I hope to post something on that sometime.